Do you ever wake up in the middle of the night, staring at the ceiling, and you just feel this heavy, crushing weight on your chest? It's not necessarily panic, it's more like a low-level hum of anxiety that never quite goes away. You ask yourself, what am I actually doing? Where is this all going? Maybe you feel like you're drifting, caught in a loop of bad habits you promised yourself you'd break years ago. You tell yourself you'll start exercising tomorrow, or you'll finally fix up that resume, or you'll have that difficult conversation you've been avoiding. But then tomorrow comes, and it's just a repeat of today. You feel directionless, like a ship without a rudder in the middle of a storm.
And it's not just the internal stuff, is it? It's the sheer noise of modern life. It feels like chaos. Think about the financial stress that seems to hover over everything, the bills that keep coming, the inflation eating away at your savings, that nagging fear that you're always one unexpected expense away from disaster. Or maybe it's the ambiguity in your relationships, the unspoken resentments, the feeling that you're disconnected from the people who should matter most. You look at social media, and it seems like everyone else has it figured it out. They're getting promoted, getting married, buying homes, and you're just falling behind.
It's a terrible feeling, isn't it? To feel like life is happening to you rather than you living it. That sensation that the world is becoming increasingly complex, increasingly demanding, and you just don't have the roadmap to navigate it. You feel overwhelmed and, frankly, a little bit lost. That feeling, that specific gnawing sense that things are spiraling out of control, is what we often call chaos. And when you're in it, it's hard to see the shore. You might feel weak or resentful or just incredibly tired of the struggle. But I want you to know, you aren't the only one feeling this. In fact, this sensation of being overwhelmed by the complexity of existence is perhaps the most universal modern experience there is.
Which is why we need to talk about order. This is The Last Read, Books for Your Ears, Wisdom for Your Life. If you want to find the signal in the noise, I'd invite you to hit that subscribe button right now, because the path to order is one you don't want to miss. Today, we are opening the pages of a phenomenon, a book titled 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos.
Now, that subtitle is key. Antidote to Chaos. It implies that the confusion you're feeling isn't a personal failing. It's a poison, and there is a cure. But this isn't your standard self-help checklist. We aren't just talking about positive thinking or vision boards here. We are talking about ancient secrets and biological truths so deep they predate trees. I'm talking about lobsters. Yes, lobsters. You might be wondering what a crustacean has to do with your anxiety or your career, but it turns out we share a neurochemistry with them that is 350 million years old. There is a reason you slump when you're defeated, and a chemical reason why standing up straight might actually change the reality of your life.
If you want to read along or grab a copy for your shelf, we've put a link to the hardcover in the description below. But to understand why a book about lobsters and biblical myths became a global bestseller, you have to understand the man who wrote it. He isn't just a professor. He's a clinical psychologist who has spent decades sitting across from people in the absolute darkest moments of their lives.
He's a clinical psychologist who has spent decades sitting across from people in the absolute darkest moments of their lives. We're talking about addiction, depression, schizophrenia, the kind of tragedy that most of us turn away from. But Jordan Peterson didn't turn away. Before he was a YouTube sensation or a best-selling author, he was a professor at Harvard and the University of Toronto. And in those halls, he was doing something unusual. He wasn't just looking at data sheets. He was obsessively studying ancient mythology alongside modern neuroscience.
He wanted to know why we suffer. And more importantly, he wanted to know why some people can walk through hell and come out stronger, while others are crushed by it. He realized that the rules of life aren't just social constructs we made up last week. They are patterns, buried deep in our biology and our oldest stories.
Peterson argues that life is suffering. That's the baseline. But he also believes that if you can find meaning, real, heavy responsibility, you can withstand that suffering without becoming bitter. So where does a Harvard professor start when he wants to teach you how to stand up to the tragedy of existence? Well, he starts at the very bottom of the ocean, with a creature that has been navigating hierarchies and winning territory for 350 million years. He starts with rule number 1.
Stand up straight with your shoulders back. It sounds like something your grandmother would nag you about at the dinner table, right? But Peterson isn't channeling your grandma here. He's channeling a crustacean, specifically the lobster. Now, you might be thinking, what on earth does a lobster have to do with my anxiety at work? Well, it turns out we share a brain chemical with these little guys that goes back about 350 million years. It's called serotonin. In the lobster world, life is a constant battle for territory. When two lobsters fight over a prime hiding spot, the winner gets a massive chemically induced confidence boost. Their serotonin levels spike, they stretch out, they look big. They're basically strutting. But the loser's brain chemistry actually changes. Their serotonin drops and they curl up into a little ball to make themselves look small. They become physically weaker and less likely to fight back next time. Peterson argues that we have the exact same dominance counter inside our own brains.
Think about that feeling of imposter syndrome that is so rampant in the US right now. Maybe you're a first-year student at an Ivy League or a young executive sitting in a boardroom in Manhattan. You feel like a fraud. You hunch over your laptop. You avoid eye contact. You try to take up as little space as possible. You are physically broadcasting defeat. And the scary part is, your brain reads that posture and says, "Oh, I guess we're at the bottom of the hierarchy," and it lowers your serotonin to match. It's a feedback loop. You feel small, so you act small, so people treat you like you're small, which makes you feel even smaller. Rule 1 is about hacking that loop. It's not just physical, it's metaphysical. When you voluntarily stand up straight, you aren't just fixing your spine, you are accepting the terrible responsibility of life. You are telling your ancient brain that you are ready to engage with the world. And this bleeds right into Rule 2. Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping.
Peterson often points out this strange tragedy in human behavior. If your dog was sick, you'd buy the expensive medicine and make sure he took it at the exact right time, wouldn't you? But when you are sick, you might not even fill the prescription. We take better care of our pets than we do ourselves because we know our own flaws. We don't think we deserve the medicine. Standing up straight is the first step in treating yourself with the same respect you'd show a stranger or a golden retriever. Once you respect yourself, you start looking at who you surround yourself with. That's Rule 3. Make friends with people who want the best for you. If you're standing tall, you stop tolerating people who try to drag you back down into the lobster bucket. You know the type. The friend who gets jealous when you get a promotion or offers you a cigarette when they know you're trying to quit. When you adopt a posture of responsibility, you naturally repel those people and attract the ones who want to see you succeed. So, you've stood up, you've got your shoulders back, you're ready to take on the world. You look around with your eyes wide open, finally ready to fix everything that's wrong with society. But then, you look down, and you realize that before you can go out and fix the world, you might want to take a look at the absolute disaster sitting in your own basement.
Which brings us, quite literally, to the disaster in the basement. This is the core of Rule 6. Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. You've probably heard the internet version of this. Clean your room, bucko. It's become a bit of a meme, right? You picture a stern Canadian professor telling you to fold your laundry. But if you stop and actually read the chapter, it's not really about laundry. It's about the terrifying danger of resentment. Peterson goes pretty dark here. He talks about the Columbine shooters. He talks about people who look at the suffering in the world, or the suffering in their own lives, and decide that the whole game is rigged. They decide that being itself is corrupt, and they appoint themselves as the judge, jury, and executioner of reality. And look, we see a milder version of this every day on Twitter or TikTok. It's extremely common in the US right now. You have people who are barely holding their own lives together. They're failing their classes, they're alienated from their families, they can't hold down a job,
but they are convinced they know exactly how to restructure the entire global economic system. It's an arrogance that masks incompetence.
Think of it this way. Imagine a guy standing on top of a massive concrete dam. He sees a tiny crack near the top, a little leak, and he starts screaming at the engineers, waving signs, demanding they tear the whole dam down because it's structurally unsound. Meanwhile, if you went to his house, his own basement is flooded with 3 feet of sewage because he never bothered to fix his own sump pump. That's the analogy. You're trying to fix the Hoover Dam when you can't even keep your own basement dry. Peterson points to Alexander Solzhenitsyn as the antidote here. The guy was in a Soviet gulag, literally the worst place on earth, and instead of cursing the world or blaming Stalin for everything, he asked himself, how did I contribute to this? What did I do wrong in my life to end up here? That is an almost superhuman level of humility. And Peterson's point is, if you can start there, if you can stop lying to yourself, stop acting out of resentment, and actually fix the things in front of you, then you stop adding to the chaos of the world. And once you stop adding to the chaos, you might actually be stable enough to help someone else navigate it. Which leads perfectly into Rule 5. Do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. This is where setting your house in order moves from you to your family. And this rule hits hard for modern parents, especially in a culture that often tells you to be your child's best friend rather than their parent.
Peterson argues that if you, the parent, the person who loves this kid more than anyone, if you dislike them when they're acting out, imagine how the rest of the world is going to treat them. The world doesn't care about your kid. The grocery store clerk, the future boss, the future partner, they won't have the patience you have. If you let your kid become a little tyrant, screaming in the restaurant, hitting other kids, interrupting adults, you aren't being gentle. You're setting them up for a lifetime of rejection. You are the proxy for society. It's your job to teach them the rules of the game now, in a safe environment, so they don't get crushed by the world later. It's essentially the same principle as Rule 6, just applied to parenting. Discipline isn't about being mean. It's about competence. It's about limiting chaos. So you've stood up straight. You've cleaned your room. You've disciplined your children so they can function in society. You have established order. But order isn't enough. You can have a perfectly clean room and a perfectly behaved child and still be completely empty inside. You can be efficient but aimless. Now that the fog of chaos has lifted and you're finally standing on solid ground, you have to decide where you're actually going. You need a compass.
You have to decide where you're actually going. You need a compass. And that brings us to Rule 7. Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. This is probably the core philosophical weight of the book. Peterson makes a really distinct separation between happiness and meaning. And it's a distinction that, well, it upsets a lot of people. We're taught that the goal of life is to be happy, right? If you're not happy, you're failing. But Peterson argues that happiness is a terrible goal. It's fleeting. It's a side effect. It's like cotton candy. It tastes great for a second, but it dissolves. And more importantly, when tragedy strikes, and it will strike because life is suffering, happiness vanishes. If your entire life's purpose was being happy, then when you get sick or lose a loved one, you don't just lose your happiness, you lose your purpose. You have nothing left to stand on. Meaning, on the other hand, that's the solid ground. Meaning is what sustains you when things go wrong. It's the heavy load you choose to carry. But the enemy of meaning is expediency. Expediency is doing what's easy right now. It's the short-term fix. It's cheating on the test to get the grade. It's ignoring the leak in the roof because you're tired. It's following your bliss when you should be building a foundation.
And this ties directly into Rule 8. Tell the truth, or at least don't lie. Because usually the most expedient thing you can do is lie. Peterson talks about these white lies we tell to smooth over social friction. We think they're harmless. We smile and nod when we actually disagree. We say everything is fine when the house is on fire. But Peterson warns that these lies warp the structure of your reality. He says, if you betray yourself, if you say untrue things, if you act out a lie, you weaken your character. And if you have a weak character, adversity will snap you in half.
This leads us right into the fog. This is where Rule 10 comes in. Be precise in your speech. Imagine this scenario. It's a classic example. You're upset with your partner. Maybe they didn't do the dishes, but it's not really about the dishes. It's about how they don't respect your time. But you don't want to fight. It's easier, it's expedient to just say nothing, to let it slide. So you lie, you act like it's fine. But the problem doesn't disappear. It just loses its definition. It becomes this vague, gray cloud of resentment hanging over the kitchen. That is the fog of chaos.
Because you weren't precise, because you didn't name the problem grows. It turns into a monster. A week later, you aren't fighting about dishes. You're screaming about your entire relationship, about every failure of the last 5 years. Peterson says, the fog of uncertainty does not lift, and there is no negotiating through the world. If you had just been precise, if you had faced the sharp pain of the truth in that moment, you could have dealt with a small, specific problem. I am angry because the dishes aren't done. That's a dragon you can fight. But by avoiding it, by choosing expediency over truth, you let the dragon grow until it consumes the whole house. So, you pursue meaning. You stop lying to yourself. You speak with precision to keep the chaos at bay. It sounds exhausting, doesn't it? It sounds like a lot of responsibility. And it is. Carrying that load is what gives life meaning, but it's still heavy. It's serious business. But you can't carry the weight of the world 24 hours a day without breaking. Sometimes you're walking down the street, your head down, bearing your cross, and you see a flash of movement on the sidewalk. Sometimes you just need a moment of grace.
And you see a flash of movement on the sidewalk. Sometimes you just need a moment of grace. That brings us to the final stretch of the book, where Peterson shifts gears. He moves away from the heavy, chaotic dragons and the burning resentment, and he offers us something softer, lighter, but no less profound. He gives us Rule 11, do not bother children when they are skateboarding, and Rule 12, pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. Now, on the surface, these sound like quirky little afterthoughts. You've just spent hundreds of pages reading about suffering, malevolence, and the collapse of civilizations, and now we're talking about skateboarders and stray cats? But don't let the simplicity fool you. These 2 rules are the practical application of everything we've discussed. They are about how to actually live in a world that is trying to break you. Let's start with Rule 11. Do not bother children when they are skateboarding. Peterson isn't just giving advice on park etiquette here. He's talking about risk. He opens this chapter by describing a group of kids skateboarding on the university campus. They're jumping down stairs, grinding on handrails, doing things that look incredibly dangerous. And the instinct of the modern world, the instinct of the devouring mother we talked about earlier, is to stop them, to say, that's too dangerous, you might get hurt, put on a helmet, get down from there. We see this everywhere. Cities tearing down jungle gyms because they're liability hazards, schools banning tag because it's too aggressive. We try to wrap the world in bubble wrap to protect the people we love. But Peterson argues that this is a mistake, a fatal one.
He says that when those kids are on their skateboards, or when a child is climbing a jungle gym to a height that makes you nervous, they aren't trying to be safe. They are trying to become competent. They are voluntarily facing chaos. If you stop them, if you make the playground perfectly safe, you don't make the child safe, you make the child weak. You strip them of the opportunity to master danger. And a child who has never mastered danger grows up to be an adult who is terrified of the world. So, Rule 11 is really a warning against overprotection. It's about letting people, including yourself, take necessary risks. You have to let the skater skate. You have to let the child climb the monkey bars, even if they might scrape a knee, because that scrape teaches them gravity. It teaches them their own limits. It's about trusting that human beings are tough. We are built to contend with the world, not to hide from it. But contending with the world is hard, and that leads us to the final rule. Rule 12, pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. This is the most personal chapter in the book. It's where Peterson opens up about the immense suffering in his own life, specifically the illness of his daughter, Michaela.
She was diagnosed with a rare, incredibly painful form of juvenile arthritis. She was in constant pain. She had to have hip and ankle replacements as a teenager. It was a nightmare, the kind of senseless tragedy that makes you look at the sky and ask, why? It's the kind of suffering that can make you resentful. It can make you hate the world. And this is where the cat comes in. Peterson says that when you are in the middle of a crisis like that, when the dragons are real and they are breathing fire on your house, you can't plan for the next 5 years. You can barely plan for the next 5 minutes. The suffering is too great.
If you look at the whole picture, you will be crushed. So you have to shorten your time frame. You focus on the immediate. And you have to keep your eyes open for the tiny, seemingly insignificant moments of redemption. He talks about a ginger cat that lived in his neighborhood. It wasn't his cat, but sometimes when he was walking to work, carrying the heavy load of his clinical practice and his daughter's illness, the cat would be there. And for 15 seconds, he would stop. He would pet the cat would purr, and for those 15 seconds, the suffering was suspended. It's a moment of grace. That is what Rule 12 is about. It's not about ignoring the darkness. It's about finding the light within it. It's about the fact that even on your worst day, when you've lost your job or you're sick or you're grieving, there is still a sunset. There is still a good cup of coffee. There is still a cat on the sidewalk who wants to be scratched behind the ears. If you walk past those things because you are too busy being angry at the world, then you truly have nothing left. You have to grab those moments. You have to pet the cat, because those small mercies are the fuel that gets you through the tragedy. So, you take the risk. You climb the jungle gym. You face the danger to build your strength. And when the fall comes, and it will come, you don't stay down. You look for the small good things that remind you that life, despite everything, is still worth living. It's a beautiful way to close the loop. We started with standing up straight, facing the chaos, and we end with a quiet moment of gratitude. But now that we've covered all 12 rules, where does that leave us? How do we actually move forward from here?
It leaves us right on the border, standing on that thin line between order and chaos. Throughout this entire book, Peterson has been hammering home this idea that life is a balancing act. You can't just stay in the realm of order, where everything is safe, predicted, and structured, because that eventually turns into stone. It becomes tyranny and stagnation. But you also can't live entirely in chaos, the unknown, the risk, the floods, because that's where you get overwhelmed and lost. The wisdom of these 12 rules isn't about picking a side. It's about having one foot in what you know and one foot in what you're learning. It's about being stable enough to function, but brave enough to grow. And the most empowering part of this whole journey? You are the one who gets to walk that line. You have the agency. You have the power to fix your life. Not all at once, not by waving a magic wand, but rule, by telling the truth, by cleaning your room, by petting the cat.
In the very final pages of the book, a section he calls Dakota, Peterson shares a personal story about receiving a gift from a friend. It was a pen equipped with an LED light, so you could write in the dark. A pen of light. He asks himself a question that I think we should all ask ourselves as we close this book. What shall I do with my newfound pen of light? And the answer he arrives at is simple, but it hits you like a freight train. Write truth. Or, as he ultimately phrases it to answer the question of what to do with his life, aim for paradise and concentrate on today. That is the takeaway. You aim for the highest possible good. That's your paradise. But you focus your effort on the concrete actions right in front of you today. That is how you turn chaos into habitable order. That is how you find meaning.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive here on The Last Read. If you've stuck with us through all 12 rules, I hope you're walking away with a heavier tool belt and maybe a slightly straighter posture. If you want to keep exploring the world's most impactful books with us, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We have some incredible journeys lined up for the future, and you won't want to miss them. And, of course, if you want to dig into the full depth of Peterson's arguments, and I highly recommend you do, because we've only scratched the surface, the link to buy the hardcover book is right there in the description. So, take that pen of light,
Aim high. Look at the mess in front of you. Look at the potential inside of you, and take that first step. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. You've got this.